Welcome back to the Splinter Twins. I'm Kyle, that's Mark, and there is some news afoot in the Magic the Gathering world. Out of the World Championship slash MagicCon Vegas, Universes Beyond is beyond what we expected. Mark, before we go into our opinions,
Is it
well,
though?
more on that in a second. Mark, before we go into all of our opinions, I've got a bunch of context I want to lay out to talk to everybody. To summarize, it turns out the slope was indeed slippery. Mark,
Yeah,
what's
the
the news?
slipperiest. Yeah, the news is really straightforward here. Wizards announced that going forward, these Universe Beyond, think your Lord of the Rings, those kind of things, those are going to be standard Pioneer, regular for all intents and purposes Magic sets. So just imagine, like, we just came out with Duskmourn. Next year, we're going to come out with Final Fantasy, right? And that's the same thing, right? Draftable, standard legal, legacy modern, pioneer, right? It's in the constructed oeuvre. So really it's a pretty simple concept to grok, right? Take your Magic set, give it a coat of Spider-Man paint. There you go, right? There are some changes to rotation. There are some changes to the volume and the cadence and all these other things that we're going to get into context about. But in terms of like the news, pretty straightforward. And we joked about not really unexpected.
If I had to put our thesis on this is at least my opinion, Mark. I don't know where you're at on this. I think this is a decision that's going to pay off big time in the short time, but is ultimately going to hurt Magic. I'm not saying it's going to kill it, but
Nah.
I'm saying this is going to significantly erode Magic, and without correction could potentially hasten the decline. The short-term gains for just to walk through it, there's no doubt. Just don't even come in the comment section with like they're doing this because it sells packs. I am aware that it sells packs. On
A
June
lot of
23rd
packs.
of 2023, Lord of the Rings Tales of Middle-earth released, and then 2 months later, by August, it was already the second highest Magic the Gathering set of all time. And then later, Mark Rosewater would confirm that indeed Tales of Middle-earth became the highest selling set in Magic history. To back that up, right? The timeline was in May of 2020, Wizards released the Godzilla cards. If you remember the
Yeah.
Godzilla cards, they were Godzilla lands, and then there were also some creatures that were reprinted. Things like Godzilla Infinite Doom with alternate art versions of Yadaro the Wandering Doom, not
Right.
mechanically unique cards. And then in
And they even
October,
said on the top of
yeah,
the Magic card, right?
yeah,
Like, hey, this is the counterpart. And this is
I've got them
and
up on
I
this.
just
I put them up on the screen
yeah,
for
let's show them
people.
on the screen. And I think this is important context because this is this is the getting you used to it, right? This is the
Oh
little
yeah,
bit of the ooh.
100%.
We're playing IP just the tip is what we're playing
Yeah,
in 2020, right?
because
It's
then
just
in
like
October,
here
Mark,
it
in
comes.
October, like 5 months later, Wizards announced Secret Lair Walking Dead, and people went ape shit. It was a secret lair, so no LGS support, playing on people's FOMOs, and they were mechanically unique commanders. Like Rick
Yeah.
Steadfast Leader was just the card. There was no magic equivalent, and that's how we got here. Everybody at the time was just, okay, yep, we're on the road to I'm gonna attack my Iron Man into your Harry Potter. Do you block? And everybody, there was a lot of people at the time who said that's not gonna happen. That's not what this is. This is a
Nah.
fun one-off product. And I remember vehemently talking with you. I'm like, this is what we are going to where we are now. And now we are here. And
The only
anybody that
way
was surprised, you can be happy about it, you can be mad about it. But anybody that was surprised is fucking naive.
I'm not sure how many people didn't realize this was always going to be the case. The only way this wasn't going to happen is if those products didn't sell. They did, and so we're here now. Yeah, I just don't have the energy to go through and like find the Morrow quotes or whatever that's like that's not gonna happen. The vibe sure felt like they were like, no, it's not gonna happen. And then of course, inevitably here we are. And let's talk about before we talk about like the release schedule and the rotations and some of the other stuff, let's just talk about like what it's gonna be this time next year when I attack my cloud, right? Like this isn't hypothetical, like the scenario that you laid out, Iron Man into Harry Potter. Final Fantasy is on the calendar, right? It's June 13th. This is happening in like 8 months or whatever. We're
Yeah,
having
I
this
will
happen
block
in
your
Salem.
Cloud Strife with my Amazing Spider-Man.
And I think they picked a very def IP to launch with this into standard because Final Fantasy, very magic vibes, right? Like there's a lot of stuff. The artwork they showed in the video is a little bit different, but like a lot of the stuff, the names, the images, those could be magic cards, right? Like you could see those on Dominaria, right? That's not crazy, and so that I think is smart. However, Spider-Man coming up later in the year is going to look real, in my estimation, fucking silly. That's going to be silly, Kyle. I don't want to play Spider-Man cards with you. That's just dumb. That's just a dumb thing. And so this is going to be like, I guess, remember the thing? The refrain was, if you don't like it, you don't have to buy it. Well, piss on that. Yeah, you're playing with Spider-Man whether you like it or not.
Oh, there was a lot of discussion back in October of 20, just like, okay, just ban these cards at your commander table and move on. I can't show up to the LGS in a standard like FNM and tell people they can't play these cards. It's not going to happen.
Arena.
It's also not that I don't like Lord of the Rings. I love Lord of the Rings. Spider-Man is my favorite superhero. I love Spider-Man. I love Final Fantasy. I think I've played almost every Final Fantasy game. It's not that. I'm one of those weird people who likes Magic, the game, and I don't really care to see the Fortniteification of its IP.
The shareholders will hear you, Kyle. Be careful. Oh no.
I cannot understand you, neither can the listener.
The shareholders, Kyle, the shareholders are going to hear you and they're going to come get you.
It's just such a, like I said, short-term cash grab. Yeah. And we're going to get to the release schedule in a little bit, but it's kind of exhausting, man.
Can I point out, like, I hear, like, the discourse around the phrase cash grab being like, well, it's a business, everything is a cash grab. It's like, yeah, well, what a nuanced, interesting take that is. Cash grab in the sense that this is I think, counterproductive move because it dilutes the brand in a way that I think is going to be silly.
It's not that short-term gains are bad. It's that they're going to have a long-term cost.
Right. And that's the cash grab nature
if you're wondering, like, there's no way this isn't going to have diminishing returns. Like,
yeah, but does it though?
It does. Okay. We'll talk about like the on-ramp and all that kind of stuff. Actually, let's just go with the on-ramp argument. One of Morrow's points was, and one of Wizard's points was that this is a more logical on-ramp for new players. You're a Final Fantasy fan and you want to play Final Fantasy, like, and you like these cards and you're going to get into it. That's like, this is an extremely complicated game, right? It's not a casual thing to learn. It's not like you're going to be able to be like, oh, I like Cloud and I'm just going to learn how to play Magic in Standard. You could do that, but you can't show up to FNM. There's still a lot of learning that has to take place.
Yeah.
And it is the throwing up the white flag that Magic is not good enough to attract people on its own, so we need to dip into other brands to hopefully bring them on board and grow the player base, as opposed to what I would like, making the world's greatest game have better IP that can attract people. Like, yeah. I feel like I'm taking crazy pills.
Blue Burrow is a good example of this actually happening recently. Like, that set sold really well.
Duskmourn!
And Duskmourn is selling well. Like, there are beloved sets in the last few years, and so it's not like you have to do this. You know, I've heard some people like say, I was reading on Reddit, it's like, well, if this is what it's going to take to save Standard, I'm like, save it from what? Like, I don't think this is going to get people. I don't think this is going to get Standard to fire at every FNM on Friday night. Like, that's not going to happen. But it's a good format. Standard right now is actually really fun, especially best of 3. The tournaments are banging. There's actual prize money. Like, Vegas was, at least well observed. Like, I don't think this is necessary in terms of like the diminishing returns. I'm not sure. Like, I think people are gonna buy into these sets. I mean, we saw what happened with Lord of the Rings, right? Like, I think the Magic fans that like that IP, whether they're lapsed Magic fans or not, are gonna get hyped for that. I don't see a lot of people being like, I'm a Doctor Who fan, so now I'm playing Magic. Like, that, I'm sure they spend a lot of time thinking about this, but that just doesn't track with my anecdotal observations. So the reason why I don't think this is like a diminishing returns is they're just taking the idea of like, let's go back to Innistrad for the 7th time, and now we're going to get Spider-Man instead. And so it's like, in some cases, from like a flavor and a story perspective, hell, I guess that's easier, right? Because you can just make the Doc Ock card, right?
Yeah, but the newness of it is going to wear off really fast, and the silliness is going to remain.
Yes.
And
the silliness will be real.
That's why I'm talking about the long-term versus short-term. It's here. You can't put the genie back in the bottle. And, how many years before we're fucking playing the Monopoly, man. Like, there's not an infinite number of Lord of the Rings,
Right.
Final Fantasies, Star Wars, and Spider-Man, and Marvel Comics in general out there. Like,
Well,
where do we
You
go?
can go back, right? Like a lot of these IPs are very deep. Like you could imagine doing multiple sets on
Yeah,
both
which
the two things that are
brings me
announced.
to my next point with the licensing problems. I don't know how Wizards is cutting these deals with how are you going to handle reprints? And don't tell me you can just print another functional reprint. Would you like a deck to be able to play 8 One Rings? Is that what you want? Like
Yeah,
that
That's a
is
problem.
not oh, okay, you're going to ban the old one and then only let people play the Magic one? That's not satisfiable either or satisfying either. Yeah. If
reprints are real. That's a real concern because
Yeah.
I'm just assuming. Well, actually, I shouldn't assume because that's again this. To be a Hasbro core brand, you have to be short-sighted, and like the idea that there's, I hope, deals in place to make reprints a thing, but I don't know. Like, I don't think Marvel has just forked over to Wizards of the Coast like an indefinite permission slip to print these cards. Like that probably isn't happening. Maybe it is. I don't have any clue, but like it's a real concern if they just oopsie doopsie can't reprint. Like look at all the problems we have with reprints with just Magic's own IP. Now add that wrinkle into it. I really hope they've got that straightened out.
So, I would say on this section, my feelings are, even if the reprint thing isn't a problem, even if the cards are fun and interesting and flavorful, I would still rather not have this. I was
Yeah.
fine on, like, if you could have promised me they're just going to do these like Warhammer and Walking Dead Commander cards or whatever, I'm like, fine, man, just take that over into Commander and you just play whatever. We're on record, we're not the hugest fans of Commander based on what Wizards has done as the Eye of Sauron, pun intended, has gazed on that format. I liked it a lot better when Wizards ignored it, and I think they've really harmed my enjoyment of it to the point where I barely play it now. I just don't want this, man. I'm not interested in it, and I think the long-term like hope that Wizards storytelling and brand would be attractive, like the the fabled animated show that we've always wanted that would get people hooked and they would like that IP. I know.
I don't know about that show.
A lot of people can. It's not like it's an impossible thing to do. Like
I don't
that's a
know.
thing
This
you
story's
could do.
pretty wacky. Like
You could. It doesn't matter. You don't have to pick. Like you don't have to tell all of Magic's story.
Right.
You could just set it in the Magic universe, make up new characters, and I don't know. Maybe Kaya shows up or whatever. Who cares? It's just in the Magic universe.
it's possible. Certainly, it's
You could
certainly
make a
possible.
compelling story, and that is
Look at Arcane. Arcane's actually
Yeah.
a really good example of this.
way
right?
more interested in something like that to get people in and grow the brand as opposed to just being like, I don't know, fucking put Spider-Man in it. Like
Yeah.
it's just
I am actually-
silly, and I think the game deserves better than like silly, I guess is
Yeah.
how I feel about it.
I think I'm going to be relatively personally mildly irritated to unbothered this time next year when I'm seeing Spider-Man swing into standard and you got Cloud or whatever. I'm just like, it's going to be a little bit stupid. It's going to be like an eye roll. I really aesthetically don't like it, but I wonder like how much aesthetically I can really like throw a fit. I'm not quitting standard or anything dramatic. I've seen people do that again. But I think I just don't like it, is what it is. And I think it's going to have, like you said, ramifications of the game. But, like, possibly more important is the release
Wait,
schedule.
I just have one more thing about that. With the, like, I'm still going to get, like, I'm not quitting. We're not deleting the channel or whatever. When they release the Final Fantasy cards, I will be interested like I am for all sets. I would just rather it be Magic sets, but I'm not gonna like not be excited for new cards. And I'm sure people will come back and be like, oh, you said you didn't like this, why are you building this Cloud deck or whatever? Because they're new cards in standard. And it's not that I hate new cards in standard and will stamp my feet and refuse to play any Universes Beyond cards. It's just the opportunity cost. I would have rather had have had, I don't know, a Return to Bloomborough or something like that. I have no interest in this specifically, other than the fact that they are game pieces in a game I love.
It's an aesthetic objection, and so there's only so much like, oh no, you can really muster, But I think it's still important, and I think like in terms of making Magic a recognizable thing, right? Like when half your stuff isn't your stuff, it's gonna look like, I mean, you're basically making like a free for all game. You know, like it's like not even Magic. It's like a card game that involves just like literally random ass IP. And so if you like walked up to a convention table and you looked at this, you'd be like, "This is IP the game. Like this is nothing. Like this
Ooh.
is crazy."
Ooh, I did not like that summary.
I know you didn't, but that's
I
the truth,
did
man.
not.
They're turning it into IP the game. Like this is just whatever you'll pay us to print. We'll turn that into cardboard, and you'll fucking buy it. And so it's like, you know, not loving it, not loving
No.
that.
The other thing, honestly, I think, okay, so there's that, right? The aesthetic objections, all that kind of stuff. I think the actual scary part is the 2025 schedule, which we'll put up on screen. This is not these are the standard sets, Mark. Like I'm not
Yes.
I still feel like I'm getting that wrong.
No,
That is
that's
in
right.
2025 6 goddamn standard sets.
Can we disagree? Even though we're identical twins, I love
Yeah?
this. I
You
absolutely
love
love
this?
I love this.
I do not.
So here's why I love it. Right? How many sets did we have last year?
4?
5, counting Lord of the Rings.
Oh yeah, but I'm talking about standard sets.
Right, but you're designing the set either way. So really only in terms of like, you know, if you made one of these every day, your cards would be all like, I don't know, AI generated or whatever, and they'd be dog shit. Like that would be bad. Okay, so but let's not worry too much about that, because I think 6 is a lot, but if you're just talking about like my raw enjoyment of the game,
Yeah, but
6 is
got-
too many, but
Yeah.
maybe like
I don't think they've
4. How many
did-
do you want?
I want if I could honestly pick, I'd go back to 3. But
3?
yeah, I'd go back to 3.
Once every
amazing
3
sets.
months is kind of
But the once every 4 months. But the
oh, it's too long. That's too long.
you could do a core set in the summer. That's fine.
Well, that's what Foundations
Three
is for.
3 to 4 or whatever. But 6 is too many, and I'll tell you why. I'm gonna start with the argument that I think is like the least worrisome, and that is, even if the card quality is fine, it's none of these sets have time to actually like settle and make an impact. Like I don't want Duskmourn Draft to be over in 2 months. I want to play Duskmourn Draft because it's fun. And
Yeah.
then this is just way too many goddamn cards in standard.
This is, I think that's the problem. Like, I love.
It's also not this. It's 3 years of this.
That's chaos. I think so. Let's just like in a vacuum. I actually think a 2-month shakeup is actually quite nice, because just for me personally, and you probably, and a lot of people that watch this video, play a shit ton of Magic, right? And we're jamming, you know, I don't know, on average, however many games a day, 10 games a day, you know, like whatever, like it's a lot. And you can stale out the format pretty quick, though, you know, in a rich environment, there be swings and roundabouts, and that's great. I think optimally, maybe 3 months, right, is good. I do think you are right, though. The biggest concern I have is like, holy shit, we're going to go from like a card pool for standard that is this big to this big. And while I like the idea that that might make sure that we don't have like super stagnant meta, because one thing we're seeing right now is like a meta solidifies and then it kind of responds, and it's shifting a lot, so we have good dynamics. This might be too much. This might be Commander standard, where it's just every card combo nonsense all the way down.
So I will say to you and to anybody who thinks stagnation is a problem with frequency of rotation of cards, I will tell you that is a design problem. If sets are designed with quality and they are good sets, you're not going to have those problems. Right? You could have 6 sets a year. You could have a set every month. You could make 12 sets. If you do not have good design, what you're going to have is, based on like the arena and number of standard games that are jammed and the pros, you're going to have like a week where people are just kind of playing whatever, and then the meta is going to be immediately solved, and it's going to be awful, and there's going to be broken combos,
You're
and then
wrong
it's going
about
to get
that.
rotated out. And then we're gonna play it again and again. A well-designed, well-balanced standard is what we want. And Mark, at the current cadence, Wizards is not batting out of the park. They are making
No.
some okay sets. They've made a couple great ones, and they've made more than a few fucking terrible ones.
Yeah,
Like-
that's true. So let's zoom back to the point about the meta though, just real quick. When there is a small card pool, so like go back to Ikoria or right those kind of standards where we're a little bit more tied up, and there's fire design, right? So these two factors for several years made it incredibly solvable meta, right? Because you had these busted ass cards and you had a small card pool, right? I'm not saying one of those necessarily, right? But like you could solve it. And there just kind of was nothing better than some of those S tier decks. That's not happening right now. People are literally responding to the meta right now. And some of that is because there's just an increased card pool. So you can say, it's not possible for you to find the very best 60 card deck because we will solve for that. And then we'll solve for the solve and solve for, right? And so there's some of that happening even in best of one now, which I do think is good. To your point about like, oopsie doopsie, the design went poopsie, at least this is like the same amount of design stuff is going into Lord of the Rings as a standard set. Like now there's just, I guess, higher chance that it's going to F standard.
But it's another set. Yeah. And all of the reasons why I'm terrified about power creep with this, which we haven't even got to yet. Like you're gonna need these things to sell packs. Like Cloud is gonna need to be very strong. And I'm worried about them dominating the format for that reason. But like, Mark, what if we get like 3 like Murders at Karlov Manor in a row? Like,
yikes!
Like why was that set the way that it was? You can't tell me that is a you can't tell you cannot tell me the same team that produced that and produced Bloomburrow and Duskmourn. You can't tell me that is because that's not lack of attention and time. Like,
yeah,
nobody with enough resources and time makes that set.
Yeah.
Like, they just shanked that one and they cut it short.
I think that's probably what did happen, but like in the old days, in your 2015s or whatever, sometimes the set just goes oops and it just sucks, right? It doesn't impact standard very much. This is a common thing we've had before where sometimes
it's not even the impact of the set, Mark. I'm just talking about like the shit flavor, like
right.
Just a stinker all around.
Kyle, I
bad
think
draft.
You should see that they have hats.
Yeah, they do have hats. I'm saying like it wasn't fun to draft. The flavor was bad to confusing, and it didn't impact standard. Like
that's because
you can't miss on all three of those things without just because you rushed it.
I feel like they just didn't have faith in just as to separate Murders at Karlov Manor situation. I feel like they just didn't have faith in the concept, and so they retooled it to fit into Ravnica, and then it was just a muddled mess. Yeah. Like if they'd have just done like full sellout, I don't know, like it probably still would have been bad, but at least it would have been visually or.
We're not here to shit on Murders at Karlov Manor.
But I'm always ready to shit on Murders at Karlov Manor.
With, like Streets of New Capenna. You could make this argument with like
Outlaws, Thunder Junction,
or some of the like Return to Ikoria,
Racing,
or Return to Ixalan, or whatever.
Racing set, Outer Space.
There are good cards in there, but for the most part, it's kind of like, all right. Not every set is an absolute banger.
Sometimes when I like a set based on.
I guess we are getting 3
setting.
Magic sets, Mark, because we're getting 3 goddamn Universes Beyond sets now.
I like a setting based on a set based on a setting, not on a concept. So when it's like the Cowboy set or the Murder Mystery set, those tend to fall flat.
The Gangster set.
Versus the Gangster set, right? I mean, that's a little bit more of a setting.
Duskmourn was the horror set, and I mean, you could just be that reductive.
It's a setting, though. Yeah, it's a setting.
It is a setting.
It's not a horror set. Every cool card about that is holy shit, it's an infinite haunted house. That's very evocative. Every bad set about it is like, what if also Stranger Things? Yeah. Like, that's the part that's bad. So I think, like, I hear what you're saying about, like, not having enough time. I will say...
Can I tell you the last point about that is I'm worried that it's going to be the Magic sets that get the short end of the stick.
As opposed to...
the Universes Beyond sets.
Well, maybe. But I think they kind of need those to be banged. So, like, I'm actually more worried about power creep in the Magic sets because I think they're thinking like, Final Fantasy is going to sell Final Fantasy. Spider-Man's going to sell Spider-Man. As long as the IP is strong, like those cards are going to move. Like that is empirically what has happened, right? Like the people are going to buy those cards. I think that when you get to like Edges of Eternities or whatever, I think you're going to think to yourself like, shit, we better put some bombs in there, right? Because like we're taxing people's purchasing
Fetchlands
so
and Tarkir,
much.
Mark said it first.
What's that?
Fetchlands and Tarkir, Mark said it first.
Yeah, absolutely. Guarantee it. Bet it. Print it. I think they kind of... But I'm not actually joking because Like, if you're gonna try to spend wild cards every 2 months,
Oh,
or
God.
go buy packs every 2 months, like there's not enough dollars for this, right? Like, am I just gonna like skip out on sets, like, because I just don't have the money? I mean, I literally do have the money, and I'm not gonna. But like, a lot of people probably can't do this, and I think like once you get off the roller coaster, it's really easy to stay off the roller coaster. You know, when you're like, I'm just gonna dip out. I'm not a fan of Spider-Man, so I'll just set this one out, and then all of a sudden it's 5 years later, and you haven't bought a single pack. Like,
Yep.
that could happen. That could absolutely happen.
It absolutely can. So yeah, I guess I don't know. Do you have other points that you want to talk about?
Rotation switching. Actually, this is a positive. I think this is cool. Rotation switching in like August, September versus just like boom top of the year. That's good. That's fine.
It's fine.
It's also like 2 years away from being a thing. So like,
Yeah, I mean, so
plus that's
the
a
fall
plus.
sets this
Positive.
year are going to rotate in January instead of the fall, but like that's
No, 2025 is going to happen as normal.
no. I mean, like 2 years from now.
Oh yeah. But
So,
like
I mean,
Edge
like,
of
you'll get, like,
Eternities will still see that rotation.
Yeah, you'll get 6 months less with Bloomburrow and Duskmourn is basically what it
guess.
equals out to, but like that's okay. We're
More than you ever
still
thought
getting
you would.
6 months more than you were, and it just makes kind of it predictable to be on the new year. I'm
Well-
fine with that. Okay, so like I said, in summary, my biggest gripe is the aesthetic and the kind of watering down of the brand, and I'm pretty much convinced that this is only the next step in the progression that is going to
Oh, what's
ultimately
next?
create IP the game.
No, this is it. We're here.
No. Oh, it could go
What's
so
worse?
much worse. You just
How's that?
don't print Magic sets.
Everything is IP set. I mean,
Yeah.
50% is basically 100%. Like,
Yeah.
in terms of like looking down, I think it'll be indistinguishable. Like, if you just like put yourself in a freeze chamber and then like unfroze yourself in 5 years, and let's say they kept this cadence with 50% Magic, 50% IP from other places, like maybe Ether Drift is just an anime you're not familiar with. Like, it'll just look like noise. You know what I'm saying? Like, you won't know, unless you see a character like Jace or Chandra or whatever, you'll just think it's like an IP you're unfamiliar with, which that's actually best case scenario, because then you'll probably see Garfield and be like, what the I'm not playing this fucking game. Like, what, are you kidding me? I don't want to play Garfield cards. I'm kind of bummed about it, to be honest. Like, it is a bummer, but I'm also like, the Watsy be Watsying. You know, this is kind of like, okay. At least it's not a functional fuckery, you know? That's what it's come to, I guess.
I don't
You know,
know.
this
man.
is an aesthetic fuckery.
Yeah, but that, I mean, like combining it with the set release, like it's just bad vibes. It's just
Yeah, it's bad vibes.
and I don't have it. There is a possibility that in 3 years we could play this and it could be going great and it's actually awesome and we'll change our minds and be like we were wrong. I just don't know how you could look at the past 5 years and think that's going to happen.
What's the best Universes Beyond IP that would make you say, but I actually am going to buy the shit out of this one?
I mean, it kind of was Lord of the Rings because it was so like Magic and Dungeons and Dragons in general and like modern fantasy are so
Right.
based on it. It just looks like magic because
Yeah, it felt
Magic
very
cribbed so
Magic.
much of that
Right.
DNA. So I mean, like I was never mad about the same thing with honestly the D&D stuff. Like, yeah, man, sure, it looks like Magic to me.
Yeah.
Like Forgotten
Just felt like
Realms.
a Magic
yeah,
set.
I have no problem with Bruenor Battlehammer and Magic. Yeah, dude, let's roll.
It's like, he wasn't already here? All right. Fine.
Yeah, honestly, you could have told me. I was like, yeah, it's fine.
Yeah.
Past
So what
that,
makes
though,
what makes it weird? Is it the modern stuff?
it's the fact that it's so recognizable outside of and other
Spider-Man.
of Magic.
Spider-Man.
Yeah, I look at
Superman.
Spider-Man and I'm like, you're
Harry
not from
Potter.
Magic. Yeah, you're
Yeah,
not from
it's
Magic.
like this is like Flintstones and Jetsons and silly.
Yeah,
The team up.
you could
weirdness.
show me a picture.
Yeah.
Like I have Bruenor in the other room, or even Catti-brie, or some of the other cards that I've picked up, just like in the bargain bin or whatever. Like you could just put a different name on that, and that could just be whoever from Dominaria. Like
Yeah.
it's fine. It just looks like that.
They
or
got
whatever.
dwarfs.
Like yeah,
Feels like they don't though.
on Dominaria.
feels like they
have
should.
everything on
Do they?
Dominaria. But
yeah,
the
eventually,
actually I
just
don't
a
know.
different continent.
I'm
Just a
pretty sure,
different
but,
continent.
Like you
Hop
could
on
put
that wave of light.
Wolfgar on Kaldheim, and
Right.
I'd be like, yeah, dude, that's fine.
Yeah, sure.
Um,
I think that's true. And
That's
so
the
there's
problem.
there's IPs that mesh and there's IPs that don't mesh. Part of it's being like super recognizable. I think part of it's like a flavor fail. Like Fortnite we make fun of infinitely because we're not 12. Those look fucking weird on Magic cards. I don't want to see those in Standard. I guess there's like upside here. Like if they made a Over the Garden Wall, like that would get me super hyped. It's spooky season. If you've never seen that, go see that. My God, a true masterpiece. But I'd buy the shit out of that. But I guess this could cut backwards where it's like, hey, maybe they'll get to an IP I like. What if they get to an IP I hate and I can't ignore it because it's in Standard? Like a la Fortnite, right? It's like, oh, cool. Here comes the battle bus, I guess. Yay.
I do not know what that means.
It's dumbass Fortnite.
Is it a bus you drive?
No, it's like how you like launch into the map.
I thought that was a glider.
You jump out of the bus and then you get a glider.
I'm not going to learn, and I don't want to.
I
Look,
think. I've
I
never
don't
played
know.
it.
Those are just our raw thoughts. Mark and I just wanted to record just to kind of get our takes out there, and we haven't had a chance to talk about this, so we just kind of wanted to. Let us know what your comments
And
are.
I refuse to speak to you unless we're recording a video.
Yeah, that is also true.
We're like we're basically Oasis.
Hopefully we're not being hyperbolic or whatever. These are just our honest
I feel like
feelings.
it's pretty even keel.
Yeah.
You know?
I don't think we're doing anything like super reactionary or whatever. We're certainly not the most hyperventilating people out there, but I'm not going to sit here and tell you I think this is good when I don't.
Have you been surprised at the lack of like YouTube anger thumbnails on this? Like,
Oh,
I don't want
I
to
assume
make
it's
one.
because they're still recording them, like their
Really?
thesis.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I think like this went down pretty smoothly. Like I think
No.
Watsy's like
Not
I
based
think
on
they're
Reddit.
quite-
They're like if there are people. I'm not going to name their channels, but I'll text you the name. They're just reading Reddit right now to like distill the anger and the
Really?
bad
You think
vibes
so?
so they can put up their super inflammatory thumbnail. Yes,
I'm looking for the
guaranteed.
professor
I-
right now.
No, it's not the professor. He that is not who I'm talking about.
Okay, text me.
never. It's not to Magic Dad or whatever. But yeah, that's gonna happen because there's a lot of clicks to be had in like
The
"This
fact
is
that it didn't-
game.
I feel like
gotta ruin it."
the fact that it didn't blow up like the Commander stuff. Like, okay, you say maybe the we are all literally recording this video tonight. I feel like the Commander stuff was way more controversial.
You mean the Walking Dead stuff?
No, the Commander stuff. That
Oh
just
yeah.
happened.
I think it's because it was sudden.
Maybe. Yeah, I
Like,
guess
I don't
this
know,
is,
man.
like expected. You know,
Maybe people are just distracted with worlds and stuff, but we'll see.
perhaps we got Foundations coming out, and also they did a good job like throwing that spoiler stuff out there. You know, so it's like, ha ha ha, new cards. Some of these cards are cool. Yeah, it's well done. Well played, Wizards. Well played. I do like some of these new cards. We'll see. Foundations is coming out soon, so we'll get on that. We'll have a few new decks in the meantime. We just put out Big Red. We'll have some other good stuff here as we ramp to Foundations. And then we can start our spoiler content for Foundations. Pretty excited about it.
It's gonna be good.
Fun.
All right, everybody. We'll keep you posted. We'll let you know. Magic is still fun. We're gonna keep playing, and we're gonna keep having a good time, even if this is a little bit of a damper on our parade. Still not gonna to ruin the game that we love to play. So we'll see you guys in the next one.